In basketball and football, high school rankings are huge. It mostly has to do with the fact that athletes in these two sports have to go to college first, so the hype of recruitment is way larger than it is in baseball. Most high school baseball players ranked in the top 10 will never play on a college campus, so the rankings are usually meaningless at the end of the day. I thought it would be interesting to take a look back at these high school baseball rankings to see how the careers of the top 10 formed. And we're going to start in 2002, mostly because that's how far back the perfect game rankings go. Alright, let's get into the top 10 players from the 2002 high school class. Number 10. At 6'3", 200 pounds, shortstop Sergio Santos was getting compared to Alex Rodriguez while at Mater Dei High School in California. His physique, arm strength, fluidity, and natural power left scouts in awe, and he put up some monster numbers, culminating in his senior year where he hit .376 with 8 home runs, 35 RBIs, and 15 stolen bases. The Arizona Diamondbacks loved what they saw in Santos and took him 27th overall in the 2002 draft. After a promising first few years in the minors and a top 100 prospect ranking, Santos hit a roadblock in 2005, and the Diamondbacks decided to move on, sending him to the Blue Jays. His struggles continued, and after 3 years in the Jays organization, he found himself on waivers. The Twins, White Sox, and Giants all gave him a chance to continue his days as an infielder, but when nobody could find a place for him, the White Sox gave him one last shot, but not as a shortstop. The White Sox wanted Santos to pitch. It was the toughest decision of Santos' life, but he agreed, and it paid off. In his first full season on the mound, he climbed all the way up to AAA. His numbers weren't pretty, but he was striking out more than a batter an inning and obviously had some pretty electric stuff. He made the White Sox roster in 2010, appearing in 55 games, and was the closer in 2011, saving 30 ball games. He earned himself a 3-year, $8.25 million contract, but soon after signing, he began to struggle with injuries. The White Sox traded him back to the Jays, where he would appear in 61 games over 3 seasons, and he would also make some short stints with the Dodgers and Yankees in 2015. He has not appeared in any professional games since 2015, and it appears his career is over, but the fact that he was able to make the transition to a pitcher and make the big leagues is amazing in itself. Number 9. Coming out of Tampa, Florida, Denard Span was one special high school athlete. While at Tampa Catholic High School, Span was a standout in baseball and football as a wide receiver. He won the baseball state championship as a junior and hit .490 as a senior. The University of South Florida wanted him to play football, but Span was committed to playing baseball and signed on with Florida with the intention of trying to walk on to the football team. The Minnesota Twins drafted Span 20th overall in the 2002 draft, so he decided to forego his collegiate career and sign with the Twins. It wasn't an easy road to the majors for Span, spending 5 years in the minors before sniffing a big league clubhouse. Span finally got the call and made his debut in the 2008 season, finishing 6th in AL Rookie of the Year voting. He became a staple at the top of the Twins lineup, and after 5 seasons with the club, he was shipped off to the Nationals, where he would have the best year of his career in 2014, hitting .302 with 31 stolen bases, 39 doubles, and led the NL in hits with 184. Span has made pit stops in San Fran, his hometown Tampa, and Seattle, and is currently a free agent. After a long minor league career, Span has carved out a very nice career for himself, and he should find a job in 2019 if the teams ever decide to start signing players. Also, this was his batting stance at one time. Pretty sweet, eh? Number 8. Jeff Francoeur was one of those athletes who could play any sport he wanted. By the time he reached Parkview High School in Atlanta, Georgia, Francoeur was a star in baseball and football. He played wide receiver and safety, earning all-state honors as a defensive back, and helped his team win the state title his junior and senior year. He also won state titles his junior and senior year in baseball, and during his senior year he hit .487 with 16 homers and led his team to a number 3 ranking in the entire nation. Clemson had offered a 2-sport scholarship to Francoeur, but after he was selected by his hometown Braves 23rd overall in the 2002 draft, it was a no-brainer to sign. Francoeur was very productive in the minor leagues, and after 3 seasons, he received the call to the show in 2005. In 84 games, Francoeur lit the world on fire, hitting .274 with 28 doubles, 13 homers, 62 RBIs, and 13 stolen bases. He also added 10 outfield assists for good measure. He was generating so much hype that he appeared on a Sports Illustrated cover during that 2005 season that referred to him as the Natural and asked the question, can anybody be this good? His next 2 years he drove in over 100 runs, but in 2008 he struggled, and the flaw in his game finally began to surface. Francoeur did not have great plate discipline whatsoever, and his on-base percentage was a good indication of that. The Braves decided to move on and shipped him off to the Mets in 2009, and he moved around plenty more after that. He made appearances with the Rangers, Royals, and Giants, and the Padres even tried to use him as a pitcher in AAA. That was a short-lived experiment and only lasted 8 games. After a year with the Phillies in 2015, Francoeur spent 2016 with the Braves and Marlins, and that would be his final year of playing professional baseball. Francoeur is still involved in the game and will serve as the Braves' lead television analyst beginning this 2019 season. Number 7. The hardest thrower in high school in 2002, Mark McCormick was up to 98 miles per hour during his senior year. After a junior year in which McCormick went 5-1 with a 1.56 ERA and 80 strikeouts, he was on a whole other level his senior year and recorded a 0.66 ERA, which is still the record at his high school. McCormick attended Baylor, and after a few underwhelming seasons, including a suspension in his sophomore year, he showed out in his junior year where he went 8-4 with a 2.96 ERA and 112 2/3 innings. He averaged over a strikeout an inning and even led Baylor to the semifinals of the College World Series. By this time, McCormick's fastball was up to 101 miles per hour, and the St. Louis Cardinals drafted him 43rd overall in the 2005 draft. Due to countless injuries, we never got to see McCormick pitch in the majors. His first 2 minor league seasons he was striking over 10 per 9, and in 2008 he reached Double-A, but by that time his shoulder was completely giving out. He had 5 shoulder surgeries over his minor league career, and we never saw McCormick pitch another minor league inning after that 2008 season. He did try to mount a comeback in 2012 after receiving stem cell treatment, and the Astros actually gave him a shot, but after a couple of weeks in the organization, he decided baseball wasn't for him anymore, and he hung up the cleats for good. Number 6. What if I told you someone had an 80 grade fastball and curveball, and his former college catcher said he had the best stuff he had ever seen? And what if I told you that this same catcher had the privilege of catching Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer during his pro career? You probably guessed that this guy's an MLB All-Star, but he isn't. His name is Jason Neighborgall, and no, he never threw an inning in the major leagues. Neighborgall was the Gatorade Player of the Year in North Carolina and had some of the most electrifying stuff scouts had ever seen in a high school pitcher. He threw back-to-back no-hitters as a sophomore in high school and added 1 more as a senior. Neighborgall had an electric fastball with a wipeout curveball and struck out 93 in only 52 innings his senior year. After being drafted by the Red Sox in the 7th round, he didn't sign and he chose to attend Georgia Tech. He had a decent freshman year, but in his sophomore year he fell off a cliff and was even left off the travel roster at one point. He walked 24 batters in only 6 2/3 innings and had a 27 ERA. He wasn't quite as bad his junior year, but he was still averaging a walk an inning. Despite the control concerns, his talent was undeniable. He had a fastball clocked as high as 102 miles per hour and had an absolute knee-buckling curveball, and the Arizona Diamondbacks drafted him in the 3rd round, 81st overall in the 2005 draft. Neighborgall reported to rookie ball that summer, and just like you would guess, he still didn't have much control. In 22 2/3 innings pitched, he walked 45 and gave up 28 runs in only 15 games. The following year, he walked 46, only one more than the previous year. The only problem is, he only threw 13 innings that season. If you don't have a calculator handy, that's an average of 31.8 walks per 9. I don't even want to bring up 2007, but I wouldn't be doing this stat line justice to leave it out. Neighborgall began the year in Single A and pitched in 5 games. In those 5 games, he threw one single inning. He walked 12, gave up 12 runs, which led to an ERA of 108. Yes, you heard me right. He was reassigned to Single A short season, pitched in 11 games, but I don't think he wanted to fight his control anymore, and he retired from baseball following that 2007 season. Neighborgall will go down as one of the most talented prospects to never figure it out. Number 5. The Gatorade High School Player of the Year in 2002, Zack Greinke was one of the most polished high school pitchers scouts had ever seen. Greinke could also absolutely mash. Over the course of his entire high school career, he hit well over 400 with 31 home runs. On the mound his senior year, he posted a 9-2 record with a 0.55 ERA with 118 strikeouts in 63 innings. The Royals loved what they saw in Greinke and selected him with the 6th overall pick in the 2002 draft. He made his debut in 2004 as a 20-year-old and started 24 games that season. Let's just say expectations were high going into 2005. Unfortunately, Greinke did not live up to those expectations right away. 2005 was a huge struggle, and what many people don't realize was Greinke actually contemplated quitting baseball after that season. It wasn't common knowledge at the time, but Greinke had been battling with severe depression and a variety of anxiety disorders for the better part of his life. Baseball became a chore, and he broke down in spring training in 2006. The Royals gave him some space and allowed him to figure things out. Greinke thought about becoming a professional golfer or becoming a position player. Of course, we all know what he ended up doing, becoming one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Greinke slowly rekindled his joy for baseball, and by 2008, he became the Royals' ace. By 2009, he was arguably the best pitcher in baseball, making his first All-Star game and winning the AL Cy Young. Greinke has made pit stops with the Brewers and Angels, and in 2012 he signed with the Dodgers where he played for 3 years. In 2015, he had the best year of his career, recording an ERA of just 1.66. He has spent the last 3 years in Arizona and is still pitching at an elite level. There hasn't been much conversation about Greinke being a Hall of Famer, but if he can keep it up for 3 to 4 more seasons, he'll probably have 3,000 strikeouts and a very good shot at Cooperstown. Number 4. Coming out of California, right-handed pitcher Chris Gruller had a fastball that reached 96, a ridiculous curveball, and possibly the best changeup in high school. In his senior year, Gruller had a 4-3 record with a 1.49 ERA and had 135 strikeouts in only 66 innings. Zack Greinke, Cole Hamels, and Matt Cain were all available at number 3 overall for the Cincinnati Reds in 2002, but they took Gruller with that pick and gave him a $2.5 million signing bonus. Johnny Bench was a huge fan of this pick, saying Gruller had a better breaking ball and better changeup than Tom Seaver. Gruller showed some promise in his first year in the minor leagues, making 11 starts with a 3.89 ERA and averaged nearly a strikeout an inning. After this season's injury came, and they ruined his career. He only pitched in 3 games in 2003 after experiencing intense pain in his shoulder and had his first of 3 shoulder reconstructive surgeries. He came back briefly in 2004, pitching in 8 games, but had to undergo Tommy John surgery and another shoulder surgery. He missed all of 2005, and in 2006, after appearing in just 5 games, he was shut down once again. He was released by the Reds and never pitched in a professional game after that 2006 season. Number 3. Possibly the best prospect to ever come out of Canada, Adam Lone was such a good athlete that he could have been a first rounder as a position player or pitcher. At 6'5", 215 pounds, Lowen played hockey and volleyball along with baseball in high school, and according to Greg Hamilton, who is a pretty well-known coach in Canada, Lowen was the best high school player in the world. The Baltimore Orioles drafted Lowen 4th overall as a pitcher in the 2002 draft, but before Lowen signed, he went to play at Chipola Junior College. The rules in place at this time allowed drafted players up to a year to sign with their team, which allowed Lowen to play junior college. At Chipola, Lowen played both ways, amassing a 6-1 record on the mound with a 2.47 ERA and a 3.53 average at the plate. After that season, Lowen signed with the Orioles and began his professional career, which would turn out to be one of the craziest careers of all time. Lowen reached the majors in 2006 and was welcomed to the big leagues pretty quickly. His first 4 starts were against 4 Cy Young winners. Lowen appeared in 22 games his rookie season, but the rest of his Orioles career was riddled with injury. He had 2 separate stress fractures in 2007 and 2008, and he was released in 2008. Lowen could no longer pitch without experiencing intense pain in his arm, so he had to either retire or transition to a position player, something he excelled at in high school. Lowen chose the latter and signed with the Blue Jays to begin the journey back to the show. After 2 seasons into his transition, Lowen was already back in AAA, and he absolutely lit it up. In 134 games, Lowen hit .306 with 17 home runs and 85 RBIs, and earned himself a promotion to the Jays in September that same year. He only played in 14 games, but he recorded his first major league hit, and he even hit a home run against the Orioles, his former team. Lowen wandered around the minor leagues the following 2 years, and in 2014 he realized that his arm wasn't feeling terrible anymore, so he actually decided to return to pitching again. He has spent most of his time in the minors since 2014, but he made 3 appearances with the Phillies in 2015 and 8 appearances with Arizona in 2016. He most recently spent time in the Texas Rangers organization, and he is currently a free agent. Number 2. Hampton Roads in Virginia has produced Michael Vick, Bruce Smith, and Allen Iverson. They also produced the Upton brothers, and BJ was the number 2 ranked player in the 2002 class. Upton was everything you wanted in a baseball player. Blazing speed, natural power, and a confidence that was unrivaled for someone his age. As a senior, Upton hit .641 with 11 home runs and 32 RBIs to go along with 21 stolen bases. He also only struck out twice that entire season. He also pitched just for the kick of it and went 5-0 with a 0.45 ERA with 48 strikeouts in 31 innings. Upton was in the running for the number 1 overall pick in 2002, but after the Pirates opted for right-hander Brian Bullington, the Devil Rays took Upton number 2 overall. Upton debuted in 2004 as a 19-year-old, but wasn't up for good until August of 2006. A middle infielder early on in his career, Upton moved to the outfield in 2007. Let's just say he wasn't the greatest infielder in the minor leagues. In 4 minor league seasons at shortstop, he made 172 errors. That's a tough scene. In his first full season in the bigs, Upton looked like a budding star, hitting .300 with 24 home runs, 82 RBIs, and 22 stolen bases. Unfortunately, that might have been Upton's best season of his entire career, and it happened as a 22-year-old. He stole a lot of bases in Tampa, and he did hit for some decent power numbers in his final 2 years with the Rays, but his strikeouts and low on-base percentage were 2 areas he would never fix, and it limited his potential an incredible amount. After some lackluster years in Atlanta and San Diego where he teamed up with his brother Justin, he ended up in Toronto in 2016 where he would make his last appearance in the majors. After a couple of last-ditch efforts in 2017 and 18 with the Giants and Indians, Upton announced he was retiring in January of 2019. Also, after going by the name Melvin for the last little while, he has since changed his name back to BJ. This is probably the biggest news of the entire 2019 offseason. Take that, Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. Number 1. The number 1 ranked player in the 2002 class was Scott Kazmir, a standout pitcher and quarterback at Cypress Falls High School in Houston, Texas. As a senior, Casimir was dominant, striking out 172 in 75 innings, and was named Baseball America's High School Player of the Year. He was a top 5 talent leading into the 2002 draft, but his agent Scott Boras scared some teams away, allowing the Mets to snag him 15th overall. Crazily enough, Casimir wasn't even the highest drafted player on his own high school team. Clint Everts was another pitcher on the Cypress Falls staff and was taken 5th overall by the Montreal Expos. He never made it to the major leagues. The Mets traded Casimir to the Devil Rays in 2004, and that same season he made his major league debut as a 20-year-old. Casimir made 2 All-Star teams during his tenure in Tampa, led the American Leagues in strikeouts one year, and helped Tampa make their World Series run in 2008. He was shipped to the Angels in 2009, where he began to struggle with injuries and inconsistency, and he was actually released in 2011 with $14.5 million still left on his contract. No major league team was willing to give Casimir a contract, and he had to crawl his way back to the big leagues. He made pit stops in the Independent League with the Sugar Land Skeeters and the Puerto Rican Professional League, and eventually Cleveland gave him a shot in 2013, where he earned the 5th starter spot and finished 3rd in AL Comeback Player of the Year voting. He signed with Oakland in the 2014 season and returned to his all-star form that we had seen back in 2008. He was traded away in 2015 to his hometown Astros, and he later signed a massive 3-year, $48 million deal with the Dodgers leading into the 2016 season. He struggled during his time with the Dodgers and was eventually traded to the Braves, but he wasn't much better there, and he was released in 2018 at the end of spring training. He took the 2018 season off to deal with family matters, and he's currently 35, but he has said he's not ready to retire yet. He's already made 1 comeback to the majors. Let's see if he can do it round 2.